Hi everyone, it's Ajanette, and I am here to do part two of your chapter 4 lecture video. It actually cut me off and wouldn't let me finish, so we actually ended that video. We were discussing skills necessary to be successful as a human service worker, and we covered gathering data, and now we're going to move into the other sections. As a little refresher, in the event that you took a break between videos, when we were talking about gathering data, we were talking about these 6 areas where you're going to gather data through interviewing clients, engaging and active listening with those clients as they're sharing their stories, engaging in active looking and paying attention to body language and the information that you're getting beyond what they're saying, visiting homes of your clients, which may not be as frequent but very helpful, and then visiting other agencies to gather information about additional resources that could be helpful or processes that could be supportive. Then the traditional mechanisms of actually doing some reading and digging in and finding some data, and that might include going through their client file and reviewing the details, or going through the internet and finding other resources and putting together directories, or at least locating where those directories might be helpful. And then finally, attending professional conferences and workshops. Sometimes that might be a small scale case conference where collaborations of professionals are coming together to discuss their different perspectives and experiences on a specific case, or larger, broader professional conferences related to our field, where you're learning about current research and strategies and approaches that are proving to be most effective in supporting students in the field. The next skill that we're going to focus on is storing and sharing information. And when we're talking about storing information, we're talking about the records that we're keeping. As I noted earlier, it's really important to take detailed notes, case notes, to make sure that you're developing a system by which you can get those notes entered, documented in an effective, clear, concise way, where you're actually doing reports on progress, on the program, on funding, and you're evaluating the effectiveness of what you're doing, whether it's on an individual case, coming back and reevaluating the effectiveness of the plan, the treatment plan, or the implementation plan, or whether it's looking at your program overall and where there might be opportunity for growth or improvement. But that consistent, continuous evaluation improvement is really critical, really for our success in any field, not just human services. The next skill is interpersonal communications and relationship building. This is foundational. We cannot really support clients without forming some sort of effective relationship and connection with those clients. Now, there's no clear formula. I can tell you, you need to make clients feel seen, heard, valued, validated. Um, I'll tell you a technique that was taught to me in customer service years ago. Feel, felt, found. So you first let the client know that they are valued by showing some empathy and connection. Oh, I understand how you feel. Then you validate them by saying, others have felt that way too. Others have expressed those concerns as well. Others have experienced these types of crises alone as well. So they know they're not alone. They feel validated. Sometimes they might feel like, they're literally crazy, and they're not. When you tell them that others have experienced those things or felt those things or expressed those things, it helps them to recognize that they are not crazy, that they are not alone. And then found. That's where you give them the information, the evidence that, we found this is the best approach to dealing with these types of problems. So, oh, I understand how you feel. I can understand how that might be terrifying. Others have been scared in this circumstance as well. It's horrifying and terrifying sometimes to be in this situation. So I definitely understand. Other, although this is terrifying, we have found that the best approach to address this problem is partnering with this agency or following through on this step. So feel, felt, found. It's not a magic formula, but it at least is some structure by which you can show some empathy and connection in helping to address the problems and needs of your clients. Keep in mind that not everybody likes you. That's one thing I love about teaching in my 50s and even in my late 40s. Like, I'm not for everybody. Not everybody likes me. And that's okay. Because in college, you have the opportunity to take other instructors with whom you gel better. And I want to offer you the space and time to be able to do that. So don't take it personally if you're not connecting with a particular client. Don't, beat yourself up over it. Make every effort to establish a meaningful connection and then move on from there. Sometimes you might refer them out to someone that you might feel is a better fit for them. And that's okay too, right? So as long as you're staying true to your ethics and doing the best you can, then please don't take that personally. So the next thing is contractual skills. So you have to take some foundational English and writing classes, and that's really important because writing documentation is important. It's come up a number of times so far. And make sure that when you are negotiating contracts with clients, right, that you're really going through a thoughtful, intentional process. They know your expectations, you know their expectations, and you're developing a fair plan that outlines your mutual goals, what role each of you should play in achieving those goals, the tasks that need to be done to achieve those goals, maybe the time frames with which they should be done. And you're setting those expectations with one another. You're having that clear, coherent communication. You're making some negotiations during that conversation. So maybe you say, by the time I see you next week, and they say, oh, I actually, I have a lot going on this week. I probably won't be able to get to it until the following week. Then it's okay. That's a negotiation of a time frame, right? Or I really don't have the transportation to do this. However, I can do this. Is it possible that, you can manage this, or you can help provide me with a resource to get me the transportation needed? And in that conversation, you're helping to address challenges, barriers, problems, and you can negotiate solutions together. It's really important, instead of like, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. Well, maybe today, since I've never hiked a day in my life, right? Well, I have little bit, certainly nothing ready for Mount Everest, and certainly I'm not recently. But maybe I'm just going to go for a 20-minute walk to start with, right? And I'm going to walk 3 times a week. And then maybe I'm going to walk daily and I'm going to increase it to 45 minutes, something like that, right? Where you're doing small, progressive, sequential steps that will get you toward a larger goal. Otherwise, that larger goal can be very overwhelming. We often procrastinate, but if we have smaller goals with more, timely deadlines, and so they're a little bit more pressing, we can get a little bit done at a time. Make sure it's very specific who's responsible for what. And know what the consequences are, right? Know what are going to be the challenges that arise without this being accomplished. Like, this is going to set us back because X, Y, and Z. It's going to now impede us from moving on to the next task. Or if you don't complete, these classes, then the judge has indicated that you could potentially lose your diversion privileges, or you could potentially lose your children, those types of things, right? Help them to understand uh, the importance of these tasks and help them identify barriers or challenges so that you can help implement solutions now. Be proactive rather than reactive. Once you've gone through that assessment and you have actually put that contract in place in terms of the terms and conditions you've agreed to, now you actually want to go ahead and follow through with an action plan. Those are always going to be individualized because of the diversity of the clients, right? You're gonna need to have individualized solutions. So make sure they're very clear, they're concise, you spell out all the little details, including the goals that we've broken down, and the exact steps needed to achieve those goals. And then make sure you're actually using this as an educational tool. You're teaching clients how to use the plan. You're teaching clients how to advocate for themselves with you or other professionals in order to get the tools they need to successfully carry out the plan. You're teaching them overall skills that they can find useful in their own lives, like organization skills and planning skills. You're teaching them problem solving. You're teaching them communication. So you're giving them an opportunity to engage in these professional activities that are in fact building their skills, both professionally and their personal advocacy skills as well. Implementing the action plans, that might include sending out referrals, following up and making sure they were able to make contact with those referrals. If you can do warm handoffs and introductions where you're introducing them directly to the referral, that's most helpful and effective. They're less likely to follow through if you just give them a name and a number. A name is better than just an agency name, an actual person. But picking up the phone and saying, hi, Mr. Johnson, I'd like to refer one of my clients to you. When do you have time? Maybe taking that opportunity to schedule an appointment with them, but being as proactive as you can to make sure that referral is connected directly to the client. And then make sure you're doing the follow-up. Create alarms in your calendar system or ticklers. Put notes in your case notes in the client file. Gave them a referral to such and such. Follow up at the next meeting to make sure they were able to make contact or schedule an appointment, and then continue to do that. I always say, see it through to completion, right? Not just to acknowledgement, but through completion, so that you know that they're actually implementing the referral or resource that you're providing for them, and that need is being met. And then continue to offer them encouragement and support as they are making progress. Celebrate, cheer them on, ask them where you might continue to be of a support to them. Sometimes they may not know how to ask for help even at this stage of the relationship. So model that for them. Actually, say, is there any help that's needed? How can I be of help or assistance or support to you from this point forward? But have those explicit conversations. And then finally, you want to monitor and evaluate their progress. So this is an ongoing process, both at the client level and at the program level. You want to be collecting data, analyzing data, monitoring that data, making sure that it's going in the right direction. And be open to evaluation. Maybe a solution that you recommended isn't working. That's okay, right? It may have worked successfully for 10 clients before, but for this client, for whatever reason, their circumstance, it's not working. Then you adjust, you adapt, you learn from it, and you move on. So rather than looking at evaluation as, a personal attack or somehow an indication of, inadequate work, no, it's just a natural part of the process. And then use multiple methods. Offer some opportunities for confidential feedback. Give them, like anonymous notes that they can leave in feedback boxes throughout your office. Give them anonymous surveys that they can do electronically, an email, or they're texting. You can text them a survey after a meeting. as a, maybe linked to a confirmation for a next meeting. Or maybe you send out an email that lists out all the agreements that were made and the steps that need to be taken between here and the next meeting. And in that, you can also have a list that includes completing a survey and get that feedback. Be a regular gatherer of that kind of data and that kind of analysis so that you can learn and grow as a professional, so that you can have continuous improvements in your programs. If the goal is to meet client needs, make sure you know what the client needs, right? And that changes and evolves. So having that consistent data seeking approach is healthier for you as a professional and as a program. And then finally, it's helpful to have third parties come in and evaluate programs. So we, especially when we're working in a small nonprofit, lines get blurred sometimes. Our colleagues become our friends. Our employees become our friends. We want to have some degree of professional boundaries, but sometimes it's helpful to have a third party come in, not just because maybe those boundaries are blurred, but because they bring a fresh lens and a new perspective, and they can step outside and see things that we couldn't see from the inside view. And so it's really helpful to offer yourself and your program that opportunity. And finally, that top tier of the pyramid is knowledge. And what better place to acquire knowledge than in college, right? So maybe this is your first class in college, maybe this is your fifth college class, maybe you're about ready to graduate. Some things that you can continue to study either here at the community college or as you transfer to a university is abnormal growth and development. Just studying regular development, like a human development class, that's valuable because they study normative and non-normative development. So what are the normal sequences and progressions of physical, cognitive, social, and emotional development? What might disrupt those sequences? What are some indicators of non-normative development where they may not have achieved certain thresholds that were appropriate for that age? Those types of things, right? So studying human development allows you to also study atypical development, but also studying abnormal growth or abnormal psychology could be very helpful in the human services field. Understanding some of the behavioral health challenges and the mental illness that you might find in human services. It's one of the more common referrals is for mental health care. So studying abnormal psych and human development can be a great foundation for acquiring really important knowledge for these roles. Additionally, taking classes that help you understand the impact of society and culture, like sociology, social justice, some wonderful history classes that are centered on other cultures, like maybe it's Black history or Native American history. Anthropology classes, particularly cultural anthropology classes, can be really valuable. Social psych classes, where we study not just the psychology of the individual, but how social contexts and social systems impact psychological health and functioning. Anything that helps you better understand individuals and their diversity and complexity, as well as social groups and social problems that arise. So people, culture, public service, any class along that realm can be really valuable for you. Now, you do have to keep in mind there's financial aid restrictions, so you can't take every possible class that you love. At some point, if it's not a part of your major, you may not receive financial aid for the course, or you might take so many courses that you've capped out on your financial aid before you've taken the classes that you need to. So make sure that if you've already met certain degree requirements, that you're not exceeding them by taking too many classes. Find that healthy balance, unless you can pay for some classes out of pocket. And then I would say the community college is the most affordable place to do some of that exploration, to acquire some additional knowledge that can help you succeed, not just when you transfer, but in your career overall. Another thing you may want to study is group dynamics. Sometimes this is like group communications class, organizational psychology classes, sometimes business classes might be really insightful for understanding the underlying attitudes and behaviors and how people interact with one another, and what are some patterns that we see in behavior, both of individuals and of groups. Also ways that you can inspire and motivate people to work effectively toward a common goal. Learning about public institutions and public policy and public management, just to learn how these bureaucracies work, because even if you're not working for a county or state agency, you're likely going to be working with a public agency. So understanding the functions of these social institutions and these bureaucracies behind them is really helpful. And then finally, understanding the social and political forces that influence how we help people. What legislation is, currently in the works for a particular area of human services that relates to the work that you do. Funding discussions at the local, county, and at the state level. Sometimes you can sit on local commissions, city or county commissions, where you can be part of the team that investigates this social need or social problem here in your community. But any way that you can get involved, understanding the judicial process, understanding ways to navigate that system, anything that you can acquire to help support your clients, the better. Other areas of knowledge that are helpful is just understanding social problems, populations, and resources. Maybe some public health classes, definitely sociology classes, criminal justice classes might be related as well. There may actually be some nursing classes that help you to understand different dynamics. Taking any kind of marriage and family class or family problems class, systems problems classes is helpful. Addiction classes, because drug and alcohol addiction is the #1 psychological disorder, meaning there are more people struggling with that than any other psychological disorder. So having a good solid background in drug and alcohol use is going to be really helpful. Knowing the risk factors for suicide and for depression and anxiety is also going to be helpful. Some of the more common disorders you'll run across. And then additionally, just understanding what resources are in place in your community. What are the problems that are most pressing in your community? Because that's quite likely where your work is going to be focused, right? And so learn your community, get involved, understand the dynamics. Who are the players? Who are going to be your resources? What community organizations are most actively involved? Which ones have been most effective, right? And understand the demographics of the people that they serve so that you know who you can partner with, who you can refer to, and where will be a good place to entrust your clients. Then also think about just overall attitudes, like how do we view these social problems as a society, both locally and nationally? How does that affect the services that we offer, or at least the way in which we advertise those services or make those services available to our clients? And then the last thing on this slide, and I think in this topic overall, is research and evaluation. Take research methodology classes, even if it's not required for your particular degree, take them anyway. Getting that introductory training now at the associate's level is going to be so valuable for you when you transfer and you have to now have required research classes at the upper division bachelor's level. And then just recognize that research is not simple, it's complicated. We're studying complex concepts where there's lots of interactive variables. We can't submit everything to experiments. It's complicated, right? So it takes you time and multiple iterations to learn those concepts and to apply those concepts in a meaningful way so that you can learn how to use that research to inform your practices, your decisions you're making as an equity practitioner and a human service worker. So know that research is continuous, ongoing, and a critical part of all of our jobs. Even if you don't love it, still incredibly valuable. But I am going to encourage you to make sure you find out, first of all, is human service is something that you love, that makes you feel like you have a rewarding career, like it's meeting your need to have purpose in life, that you have passion about what you're doing, because it's very difficult work. This is what we call heart work, and heart work is hard work. When it's a work of passion, when it's a calling, when it's a labor of love, it takes a toll on us. There's a lot of work involved. It's worth it, but a lot of work involved. So pause, take care of you, and know, since this consumes such a large part of our lives, shouldn't you be doing something you love? Shouldn't you be doing something you believe in? If you haven't found that yet, keep looking, keep trying, because out there in the world, there are plenty of jobs and roles, and you're likely to find one or create one if you want to start your own nonprofit or your own business. You're likely to find one that's the perfect fit for you. And when you have that, that heart work and that hard work is much more meaningful and valuable along the way. I hope this has been helpful. I will look forward to seeing you in the next chapter in the next lecture. Bye, everyone.